Another week of training camp is in the books, and Jeff Bell and I are here to go rapid fire through one major storyline from every team in the NFL. And we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Jeff, Jeremiah Love sustained a high ankle sprain in this preseason game, and the team hopes he can return for week one. React.
It's always smart. No, it's never smart. I don't know. It's one of those things that if he could gotten through healthy and looked great, then sure,
Right.
fantastic. They get him that playing time. But any of your starters go down in the preseason, you're an idiot for playing your starters in the preseason. So I think it's a little bit of a catch-22 there. He is a player that we have talked previously about the narrow path to him recognizing the value that we're all hoping to see, especially the involvement of Tyler Algier and whatever happens within this offense. But now you're probably going to be drafting him at a more realistic layer. That being said, if he's going to be missing a big portion of camp and the offensive install, being comfortable within that offense, are we going to be drawing dead on the first half of the season here for Jeremiah Love? I think that becomes the major question.
And if there is one position I think rookies can get up to speed at relatively quickly is running back. I'd have much more concern about a tight end or a wide receiver getting injured. I mean, this is kind of a simple position relative to other ones. So no major concern here. I think my actionable advice is that, like I had talked about, fading Jeremiah Love as a round 3 pick. If he falls into round 4, I think that's a much easier click to make. So hoping that we can get a discount on Jeremiah Love. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons next. Drake London earned camp MVP honors from ESPN, but Kyle Pitts saw 4 of Tua Tagovailoa's 5 targets against Denver. Jeff, are we expecting this to be pretty concentrated to these two guys, this passing attack in Atlanta?
I do think, well, we're going to see Bijan Robinson as well, but I do think we're going to see hyper concentration between Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. I think Jahan Dotson is a legitimate sleeper because he's just going to be on the field and staying on the field in 2 wide receiver sets involved there. I do think they're going to run a lot of heavy personnel. Doesn't seem to be Zachariah Branch, and understandable why. Zachariah Branch is the big riser, late draft play chip that everybody's wanting to play, but he is still kind of running behind Olamide Zaccheaus. They're easing him in there. I mean, we had a pretty big high profile rookie last year get stuck behind Olamide Zaccheaus for a good portion of the season. Being said, if you're in a best ball, something like that, and you're going to go at the very end of the draft, sure, like playing that chip on that young player. But yes, I do expect hyper concentrated targets.
And there definitely is room for a secondary receiver in this offense. We saw Darnell Mooney come up 8 yards short of a 1,000-yard season just 2 years ago. So like that Jahan Dotson call out, as those final rounds in best ball seem to be getting drier and drier every single day. Next, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens rookie wide receiver. Jacoby Lane has earned numerous superlatives with his outstanding camp, earning recognition as a legitimate contributor. Jeff, we have kind of joked throughout this offseason that the answer to Jacoby Lane or Elijah Surratt is actually Rashad Bateman. Can you see Jacoby Lane actually usurping that role from Bateman and being the team's secondary wide receiver?
I mean, Bateman has had a strong camp as well. And so I think that that's really big there. It's not taking away from Bateman. The Ravens have been down their 2 starting cornerbacks. Marlon Humphrey has been out, and I'm blanking on the other cornerback. I feel horrible right now that I can't think of who that one is, but they've been down their starting corners throughout camp, allowing Jacoby Lane to work on depth corners. But absolutely, we saw in that preseason game, Philadelphia, that physicality showed up from Jacoby Lane. I think we'll see more 3 wide receiver sets than what we saw traditionally with the Ravens. That's Rashad Bateman. We opened up these training camp reports talking about Rashad Bateman being able to play in the slot. Jacoby Lane is going to be that player that allows for it. There is a definitive answer here of it is Jacoby Lane, not Elijah Surratt right now. Even Surratt had a decent game against Philly, but he was playing way late into the game, whereas Lane flashed and got him out of there. And yeah, absolutely, Lane can be a riser. I think the other part of it, Mark Andrews struggling, and that could shove some of the targets more towards Bateman and Lane. I do think either Bateman or Lane are good late best ball targets, especially if you've got Lamar Jackson at quarterback.
And I think with Jacoby Lane, too, like his skill set as a fast downfield receiver, that can open things up underneath, where we know Zay Flowers is going to work as an underneath target, but also Rashad Bateman has talked about his willingness to play as more of an underneath target, doing a little bit more, and that Declan Doyle has asked that of him. So I think Jacoby Lane could be very impactful for this offense, opening up the boxes a little bit, making bigger rushing lanes for Derrick Henry, getting Lamar Jackson back on track as a rusher, and then opening things up for both for Bateman and Flowers. Now, we've still got 32 teams to cover. But before we do that, give us a thumbs up on this video, like this video, and if you are new here, subscribe. We are bringing you daily content between now and kickoff. This is one of the fastest growing YouTube channels in the industry, helping you get league winning advice. So hang out with us between now and week 1 and then through the regular season, where we're going to have nonstop content coming your way as well. But Jeff, back on track. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. The wide receiver room looks as strong as we've seen in some time, with DJ Moore leading the way and Khalil Shakir filling in as a key contributor. We also got a little side note here. Keon Coleman injured in that preseason game, seen in a walking boot, but still I think having Moore and Shakir up top, this is a good 1-2 punch for Josh Allen.
Yeah, we were hoping to see Skylar Bell emerge there. He's been out of practice. He's really not emerging at all. Josh Palmer's been decent, but I do think you're going to see DJ Moore. You're going to see Khalil Shakir. We've talked previously about Dalton Kincaid kind of managing that workload on Kincaid. I don't feel like they think they need to press it at all, but Shakir could open up more downfield work, and that was something that he flashed early in his career, and that before he got really stuck into that slot there. And I think that becomes pretty interesting, especially the value, knowing that high profile offense that Khalil Shakir is playing in, being able to play with Josh Allen. I think Shakir is a really solid sleeper. And we did see DJ Moore be immediately involved, and he is skyrocketed up. You're no longer getting 5th round DJ Moore. He's landing round 4 pretty every single draft I see now.
I feel like by the time like fantasy football weekend rolls around a few weeks from now, Jeff, we're not going to be able to target any of our guys because they are all getting steamed up at this point. Like, I'm just going to be basically heading into my home league draft on Labor Day weekend, drafting all the guys that I've recommended as fades because like DJ Moore, Jonathan Brooks, all the guys that we wanted are shooting up draft boards. And that leads us right to the Carolina Panthers, where Chuba Hubbard is now week to week with a hamstring injury. Jonathan Brooks looks fully cleared. He was taking starting snaps in this preseason game, getting live contact against Buffalo, and looked pretty good in that role. I mean, we're seeing Jonathan Brooks now moving up into round 5 of fantasy drafts. Is that a price tag that you are willing to take, Jeff?
I'm not going around 5. I've been of the belief now, getting the Chuba Hubbard injury news, that where Jonathan Brooks was going prior to that is about where he should be going. And so now you're getting the moving it up off of that. So right when that came out, I got into some drafts and Brooks kind of stayed at that same ADP. And I started clicking the button where I hadn't been clicking the button previously. And so I think Jonathan Brooks, I'm curious on you. I know you've been really in on Jonathan Brooks. Do you really see them giving Jonathan Brooks like 20, 25 touches per game? Because I think they're going to be pretty conservative with the utilization here. And I can't help but wonder if it doesn't open up a chance for Trevor Achane to come in and establish himself and turn this into a 3-headed committee, kind of what we see in Jacksonville, something to that extent long term.
I don't know if we're going to see a lot of ETN. I think he, does most of what he does on special teams. I think he'll mix in a little bit. But the other thing is, like, Chuba Hubbard is dealing with a week-to-week hamstring injury. He's not dead. He's not out for the season. Like, he could still be back as early as week 1. So I think there's this expectation now that Jonathan Brooks is just going to run away with the job and get 300 touches this year. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see that, but I am at the point now where I've changed my sights and I am passing on Jonathan Brooks, where he's going in round 5. And when I can get Chuba Hubbard, who's now fallen into round 8, round 9, round 10, like I said, there's been a lot of changing takes as player values change right now, and I do find myself kind of drawn to that discounted price on Chuba Hubbard. But let's move on to the Chicago Bears. Injuries to Luther Burden and Xavier Thomas have allowed Rome Odunze to operate as the team's leading receiver, while Jade Walker has emerged as a welcome surprise, getting extra opportunities. No note of Colston Loveland here, but I think we know that his role is pretty solidified. Jeff, when you look at this wide receiver room, and we'll throw Loveland in there as well, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, do you have one guy that you find yourself liking? Are you drafting all of them? Are you fading all of them? How are you kind of looking at this trio of receivers?
If the value's right, probably I guess would be the most accurate way to say that. I don't fade any of them. I'm not going over and above board on any of them either. I think it's if you're seeing Luther Burden in round 5, I'm comfortable there. I would prefer to see Colston Loveland in round 5 versus taking him in round 4. If you're seeing Roma Dunze falling into round 6 versus having to do the end of the 5th round. I like that, but kind of that's where my appetite's pretty sensitive on where I'm going to go here. I think there's other players in this similar range of the draft that I do feel more comfortable with. I think there's a ton of runway for all three of them to deliver value or one to emerge. It could break any direction. I love this mention of here, Jade Walker. That's been one
Yeah.
that we haven't talked about, and I know you're dialed in here, but to me, him kind of stepping in and being low end or like kind of the Josh Reynolds, the Tim Patrick that we've kind of seen in here as the guy that kind of just lingers through the offense and ends up with 5 or 6 touchdowns as the season goes on. I think he could have that kind of profile and role here as a bigger wide receiver.
And I think there was hope and expectation that that guy would be Khalif Raymond, given his history with Ben Johnson. But everything I'm reading out of camp is that Jade Walker is actually the one climbing the depth chart right now and potentially ahead of Khalif Raymond. So again, we're talking about like refilling that round 20 hopper in best ball drafts, looking for those late round picks. Jade Walker is a guy that you might want to start sprinkling in.
Yeah, but we've seen this offense have that basically that big extra receiver and the small extra receiver, where it was
Right.
Khalif Raymond and then like the Tim Patrick, basically. And so you could see, I think, longer
Allen
term, Jade
Robinson,
Walker and
Josh Reynolds.
Xavier Thomas kind of being those answers there in those roles.
Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow played 13 snaps in the preseason opener and took 7 of them from under center, confirming the emphasis that we have heard about this under center offense. How much do you think this changes things up, Jeff? Like Joe Burrow playing under center, do you think this is something that is going to dramatically change the Bengals offense?
It's fascinating because I made this point. Matt Harmon and I talked about this yesterday on his show, and of looking, the Bengals are built to win football games one way, and that's led to their defense getting gashed. If you're going to try to slow the game down and lean into the run game or play Joe Burrow from under center, I'm a little bit concerned about just losing that identity on that. And so I think that's probably the bigger concern there. Does seem to be Andre Yoshivas falling out of favor. Not that we ever really cared fancy about Andre Yoshivas, but Colby Young kind of stepping in there and growing within that role as making immediate impact rookie. But his physicality could lead into that under center offense as well.
So we've got a bunch more teams to discuss. Real quickly, though, we love insight from fans. And we know if you're watching this team, you probably love fantasy football, but you're also probably a fan of a team that we're talking about today. So it's impossible for us to cover everything in one YouTube episode. Let us know if there's any information that we're missing about the team that you're covering, because we know that you, the fans, have really good insight into these teams. So let us know in the YouTube comments if there's anything we missed, something that we should add into next week's show sheet. Any team, just let us know what we're missing, because we would love to hear it from you. But let's talk about the Cleveland Browns here. Quinshon Judkins opened the game with 3 straight carries and took every early down and short yardage snap with the starters, confirming his role as a workhorse. Jeff, is there any surprise here? Like, we kind of figured that Quinshon Judkins was going to be the Browns' workhorse, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Judkins, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why he should be a 5th-round player at this point. We were talking
Jeff,
pre-show.
His ADP settled in round 5 6 months ago, and we got confirmation that he's healthy, but it just didn't move up. Like, this is such a wild value you can get in drafts right now.
Yeah, I think right now there are 2 auto clicks if you see him in round 5 is Jameson Williams and Quinshon Judkins. And I mean, Quinshon Judkins probably should be up into like that 3-4 turn. And so getting him even into the end of the 4th round or 5th round for sure, anytime.
Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. George Pickens continues to be the standout performer of camp, making highlight plays daily on his franchise tag. Jeff, are you ready to move George Pickens ahead of CeeDee Lamb in your rankings?
I will never move George Pickens ahead of CeeDee Lamb unless there's a fire. I don't know. I don't know.
That seems to be all the buzz on social media this week.
Yeah, I'm comfortable where I've got those players. I've got George Pickens at he's like wide receiver. He's my wide receiver 14 right now, and I've got CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 5. So
yeah, and that's where I am as well. No, I was being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. I very, very easily prefer CeeDee Lamb to George Pickens as well. But let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Jalen Waddle keeps drawing praise as an explosive slot weapon while the team manages the workload of a 30-year-old Courtland Sutton. You and I have both very much so been in the camp of passing on Jalen Waddle and taking Courtland Sutton later in drafts. Does this report concern you at all?
I don't think it concerns me. They've got a player that they value and that they know how to utilize, that they know how to keep fresh. And again, we're buying values. And off this news, I mean, Courtland Sutton was already an amazing discount going as wide receiver 42 ish. And now people are fading him off this news even beyond that. And so, and the other part of this news that's not involved is Pat Bryant's involvement as well. And I think
Hmm.
something that I've looked at it and seeing Denver really struggling with the run game last year. Well, how do you answer that struggle with the run game? You had the physicality of Bryant and the physicality of Sutton both on the field at the same time as your outside receivers, and you use Jalen Waddle as that extra third receiver, that guy's slot receiver, that guy that you can move through formation. Basically, what they were trying to do with Marvin Mims, with Troy Franklin, with Pat Bryant all combined last year, and you just have those as your three wide receivers out on the field.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it as well. I do see Cortland Sutton is starting to fall in best ball drafts right now in your fantasy draft. So if he is starting to slide below ADP, that is just such an easy click in my opinion. I still think this guy has a nice out just from touchdowns alone that you can kind of bet on. But let's talk about the Detroit Lions next. New offensive coordinator Drew Petzing has used multiple tight ends on roughly 1/3 of the offensive snaps in the preseason game, and that was without Sam Laporta or Brock Wright. So we had an idea that Drew Petzing was going to give this very tight end heavy offense, and we're already getting confirmation of that. Does that change your outlook for any of the receivers here in Detroit?
I mean, it. I can't get higher on really Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams, so I don't know that it would change that. And I wasn't taking Isaac T-Slot anyways because I think Greg Dortch. Obviously, they know Greg Dortch very well. Petzik had him last year, but I mean, we already talked about Chicago having the big receiver and the small receiver, and this is offense is changing to some regards, but it's keeping the DNA to some regards as well. And so it's easy to see Dortch profiling there as that the Khalif Raymond in this offense, and then T-Slide just gets stuck as the Josh Reynolds, the Tim Patrick sacrificial player, and they do like to play multiple tight ends. So yeah, again, this is another offense that we love. It's hyper targeted, and there's no Jameson Williams ADP has never made sense.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people use this tight end heavy personnel as a reason to fade Jamison Williams. Just think about this for 2 seconds. Is Tyler Conklin, Brock Wright, and Jackson Meeks? These are the reasons you're fading Jamison Williams. Just think about that for a second. Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft rejoined the team last week after his ACL surgery and immediately claimed a hefty chunk of the offense. Along with this, we also got like a little bit of a word where he said that he would expect a ramp-up period early in the season, but Tucker Kraft is back. Like, we are drafting him with confidence as a tight end one, right, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. I have been the entire time. I mean, ramp up period, sure, until week one when he decleats an edge coming out and
Right.
then breaks a 65-yard touchdown. And then all of a sudden we realize Tucker Kraft is definitely here to stay. But I think this is an offense that, as you're seeing, I mean, Christian Watson's ADP is one that I've really struggled with because the volume, I don't know if it's going to be a high volume passing attack. And if you're having four really primary receivers spreading it out, it gets to be really hard path for value outside of heavy volume in the attack.
Well, let's talk about, and I want to say real quickly, if you are looking for another opinion on Tucker Kraft, I did have Adam Hutchison on the show last week. If you want to check that one out, he's a little bit more bearish on Tucker Kraft with his ACL recovery. So, we want to send both sides of the coin here. You and I very bullish on Tucker Kraft, but if you're looking for the other side of the coin, check out that episode that we did last Friday with Adam Hutchison. Now, this next one we're going to talk about, Jeff, the Houston Texans. The bullet point here: David Montgomery made the highlight of training camp, but Woody Marks continues to push for a significant role in the backfield. This episode is coming out Wednesday. I've got an episode coming out on Tuesday with JJ Zacharyson where we talk about this backfield, and then I've got another episode coming out Friday with Greg Branos of Coach Speak Index where we talk about this backfield. So lots of discussion about this Houston backfield. I'm still of the belief that David Montgomery is going to be a 3-down workhorse here, but we just keep hearing Woody Marks' name.
We do, and sure, absolutely. But if we knew that David Montgomery was going to be a clear 3-down workhorse at his ADP, he would be an insane value. He should be a second to third round player if we are for sure on that. So I think that there's still room to deliver off the ADP that we've been drafting in the 5th round with David Montgomery. That being said, he's moved from being a player that I was taking nearly every time in the 5th round to Quinshon Judkins is still behind him in ADP, and I'd much rather have Quinshon Judkins than David Montgomery at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, still a good value in drafts, and I think that that risk that he does seed some work is already baked into his cost. So I'm just drafting him without even thinking twice. Indianapolis Colts running back Seth McGowan is making a strong push to back up Jonathan Taylor. I think the expectation was that this was going to be DJ Giddens. Jeff, you and I talked about Seth McGowan months ago, saying that this was a good running back. Obviously, fell in the draft due to age and some legal issues from a few years back. But if given the opportunity, I think this is one of the most slept on handcuffs right now that you can still get for free at the very end of your fantasy drafts.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts have been given every opportunity to tell us what they think about DJ Giddens, going out and signing Amir Abdullah off the street last
Right.
year just to be
Yeah.
able to take some snaps because DJ Giddens struggled that badly in that role. It makes perfect sense that Seth McGowan would be the handcuff here that you want, and he's way under the radar. You're in these 20-round best ball drafts. You can get him in round 20, and there's a lot of value there. And it's amazing to me, Dave, that we were doing this note, and you must have done this show prior to the signing of Keenan Allen with the Colts, because that seems like a pretty significant news item landing here with the Colts.
Whoops. Yeah, I put this together yesterday afternoon before the Keenan Allen signing. Thanks for calling me out, Jeff. Yes, Keenan Allen is also in Indianapolis Colt. We will take note of that. And I got to be honest, like as somebody who's drafted a lot of Tyler Warren, I feel like this Keenan Allen signing is just enough to make me sweat, knowing that he's going to be operating in a very similar area of the field to where we were expecting Tyler Warren to operate. So I don't think Keenan Allen is really somebody that's like somebody you're going to count on in fantasy, but I think he's going to be just involved enough given his history with Shane Steichen to annoy Downs, Warren, and Pierce drafters.
Yeah, it makes it really messy, and you start to get pretty concerned, I think, on Daniel Jones. If the rushing is not there coming off that injury, and the passing volume, if there's no verticality within this passing attack, it's gonna get a little bit messy on this offense.
Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars next. The note that we had here said that there will be a true three-down committee between Bashal Tutin, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and LaQuint Allen. But LaQuint Allen left Tuesday's practice with an injury. We don't know the severity of that yet, so we'll keep an eye on it. But, Jeff, this is a report that we have been talking about since March, that we expected things to break this way. So I guess I can ask you to react, but like this is kind of what we had been expecting for the last few months.
Yeah, and it's really going to come down to does Rodriguez have the dedicated goal line role? Anytime that they get in the five, are they pulling Tootin off the field and bringing Rodriguez in, or is it going to be a little bit more of a 2 on 1 off, or that type of a work share on how dedicated is that role around the goal line, and how much with Allen out, if Allen it remains out into the regular season, how much of that role, where does that role shift to? Because Allen by himself is not a relevant player, but you start to stack 3 or 4 targets on top of Tootin or Rodriguez that wouldn't be there previously, and they start to get pretty appealing at that level.
And don't get me wrong, as the guy who's been championing Chris Rodriguez all offseason, if LaQuint Allen does miss time, I think Bashal Tutin is the obvious beneficiary here. He's the one who will get that passing down work. Chris Rodriguez, for as good as he is in short yardage situations and goal line situations, dating back to his time in college, he has never, ever been a pass catcher.
And that's the thing of you could have, it's why what we do, it makes it so complicated, because you could have the exact right read on a situation. And the injury to LaQuint Allen, we've both been fading Bashal Tutin. Injury to LaQuint Allen takes him out of there. It opens up opportunity. Tutins grabs the passing down role, and all of a sudden he does trend towards being a nearly every down back that never would have happened had Quintallen not gone down.
Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got Rashee Rice back at practice, ready to launch a season without drama, while Xavier Worthy continues adding wrinkles to his route running package. Jeff, there have been so many like memes and jokes about Rashee Rice. Every time he has a rep that's at like not 100% speed, it goes super viral. But I've also seen a lot of highlights of him pulling down contested catches and scoring touchdowns and making plays after the catch and doing Rashee Rice things. To me, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I don't know if there's a better value right now at the 2-3 turn than Rashee Rice.
I mean, certainly up there, you can still get like Drake London and Nico Collins there, and I would rather
if
have
they fall,
those
yeah,
players.
yeah,
But
yeah, for sure.
yeah, no, I get it. But yeah, as you're stepping into that third round, and if it starts to fall off pretty sharply early in that third round, end of that second round, he does look pretty appealing at that layer. But he to ready to launch the season without drama, huh? Rashee Rice, that you're kind of already behind the 8 ball on having a season without drama, the way that we're rolling here. But the other thing that I really really have not been able to wrap my mind around Cyrus Allen, of his emergence in camp, because I threw out 4 random names on X the other day, like Darwin Thompson and Sky Moore, players like that, and I was hit with about 13 other names on the comments of players that have been Chiefs beat winners, Chiefs training camp winners, and like we still have like basically Rashee Rice is about the only one, Travis Kelce's about the only one that's actually happened.
Yeah, that's a common theme, and we've talked about this. Like we've made the joke before. I think a lot of Kansas City Chiefs beat writers play Dynasty and like look to pump up these rookies because it seems like we get it every single offseason. But what are you gonna do? I will throw some late round darts at Cyrus Allen, but probably not a guy that I'm trying to aggressively target.
Now, that being said, Tyquan Thornton did go out with injury today, too. And so that might get to the point where if there's questions, concerns around Rashee Rice, if Xavier Worthy's availability back and forth, if Tyquan Thornton's out, yeah, there becomes definitely a path for somebody. And it looks like it would be Allen to step up and merge there.
Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders. Running back Mike Washington continues to have a great camp, capped by an excellent performance in the preseason game. Jeff, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, we had Mike Washington as our running back too, very early in the Football Guys rookie guide, and he definitely didn't end at running back two after what we saw with Jadarian Price there, but he looked really good in that training camp, and I think it starts to. I don't think as a just a fantasy hive mind has never really considered the possibility of Mike Washington having a meaningful role, like working his way into like a Tyler Algier type role,
right.
And the impact that could have on Ashton Genty relative to where Ashton Genty is going off on all these drafts. And I'm seeing some sites have a 6th overall ADP on Ashton Genty, and there could be some rocky paths to Ashton Genty turning or delivering value if the Mike Wilson really demands work within that backfield.
Mike Washington, just a cleanup for the YouTube.
Mike Washington Jr. YouTube
Mike Washington
commenters.
Jr. Yes, and I will say, like, if you're trying to draw historical usage patterns from Clint Kubiak, we have seen everything from Christian McCaffrey not coming off the field to a 50-50 split with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So kind of tough to look at his historical trends to get a clear read there. But at worst, I mean, Mike Washington, again, I'm going to say it, like goes into the round 20 target now, a guy that maybe we thought was just kind of falling off or could have lost. There was some buzz about Dylan Laube and some other guys, but it seems like Mike Washington has kind of secured that RB2 role and at worst is an injury away from a pretty exciting workload. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Tight ends Charlie Kolar, David Njoku, and Aronde Gadsden were listed with OR designations on the first team offense and have been rotating regularly. Let me just ask you kind of point blank, Jeff, do you think there's any tight end in Los Angeles, or I guess for the Los Angeles Chargers, that you think is going to find a path to fantasy relevance?
I mean, one of them could catch 6 or 7 touchdowns, but that's probably Dave. Who was the top tight end for the 2023 Miami Dolphins?
For the 2023 Miami Dolphins, was it Durham Smythe?
It was Durham Smythe and Durham Smythe's dad. Hey, how you doing, buddy? But yeah, no, I think that, we've seen this offense with Mike McDaniel clicking, humming, really a kind of his best version with a tight end that wasn't even utilized at all. And so I think what we're seeing right now is, I mean, Brendan Thompson deserves to be mentioned, is not being mentioned in the fantasy circles. Fastest player in the draft, led the SEC in receiving yards, and he's in a Mike McDaniel offense. Like, you would think that there would be things that would raise eyebrows, but Brendan Thompson, every single day, it seems to be making plays in training camp. We are seeing the Trey Harris daily highlight where Trey Harris has made another insane reception in camp. Quentin Johnston is continuing that developmental path. He's not going to be erased or removed from this. Well,
he got hurt today. Yeah.
Like hurt, Dave?
Hurt enough that he left practice. I know that was a brutal one for me. I got a lot of QJ, but
I missed that one. But
we don't know how serious it is, but QJ is hurt at the moment.
My point is there are a lot of targets here, and at some level, Justin Herbert seems like a really good value.
Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams, and I want to say, Durham Smythe, I pulled that out of nowhere. That was not on the show sheet. You put me on the spot, and I got that. That was a good one. I feel pretty proud of that. Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay on tight end Terrence Ferguson is quoted saying, T-Ferg has been awesome. I loved what he's done so far. Jeff, Terrence Ferguson, kind of seems like he's just going to be the wide receiver three here. It's going to be Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and then T. Ferg lining up as the third option out there. Is that your read as somebody who, you're the one that puts this report together and covers the Rams very, very closely?
Yeah, it's really weird because I get the Dallas beat when they had inter squad scrimmages with Dallas this week was all over Ferguson. And my report from last week, it was an ESPN reporter that was moving through, or I think it was Albert Breer even moving through, had Ferguson notes, and the Rams beat is like not talking about him at all. And I don't know if it's like just be quiet about this dude and we'll unleash him, or what's going on with it. But it's like anybody that rolls through was like, holy cow, this guy's being used so much. And then the Rams beats like, it's a lot of Aaron Donald going on there, but it's interesting because, well, you are going to see, I think Parkinson's still going to be there. I think Parkinson, especially red zone, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Parkinson end up as a top 20 tight end. Tyler Higbee there as well. Davis Allen's been out at practice. They're redshirting Max Clare, and there was a really good comment note on Nate Atkins does a good job with The Athletic, and he was talking about how they view this position as a redshirt basically rookie, because they want the tight end to learn so much. And that colors both Max Clare, that also colors Terrence Ferguson from last year, because look at all the things that Terrence Ferguson did last year, even if it wasn't all the things we wanted to see. And that was basically on a redshirt year, and you unleash him. I think he is a difference maker, I think, as the end of drafts right now.
Yeah, he was my tight end 3 in that rookie class behind Loveland and Warren, and I think his ceiling is just as high as those guys, especially in this offense. So very in on T. Ferg heading into 2026. Miami Dolphins wide receiver Caleb Douglas is the clear standout player of Dolphins training camp through the first preseason game. We've been on this for the last couple of weeks now, but this is more than just smoke now. This is a raging fire. I mean, Caleb Douglas, he might jump ahead of Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert. Like, this guy could start the season as the number one pass catcher in Miami.
Yeah, I was talking with Jason Sarney last night, who covers the Dolphins, and Jason was telling me that Douglas is very much established himself there. They were able to get Chris Bell off the non-football injury list, and so Chris Bell actually returning to action. You could definitely see Douglas and Chris Bell locking down the two outside jobs. I mean, the tight end, everybody's loving Greg Dulcich. I don't know if it's going to be any fancy relevance, and I think to some layer, I don't know, it's going to be a heavy volume passing attack out of Miami, where Douglas is the play on that of a big player that can get downfield, splash plays, red zone threat, and Malik Willis scrambling, keeping plays alive, hitting Caleb Douglas downfield. Those types of actions here for a player that I liked quite a bit as we did the rookie guide, as I did the scouting for wide receivers in the rookie guide. I was definitely higher than consensus on Caleb Douglas throughout the process.
I want to say Greg Dulcich, it kind of seems like one of those things where people just like looked at the depth chart a couple of months ago and said, ooh, Greg Dulcich, and then have just kind of had their head buried in the sand because opened up training camp injured, hasn't done a whole lot since he has returned. So you could definitely turn things around. There's still a lot of camp left, but there has been a, shockingly quiet amount of news coming out about Greg Dulcich. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. The team named Kyler Murray as the starting quarterback moving forward. J.J. McCarthy is in a battle with Carson Wentz to be the team's number 2 quarterback. No surprise that Kyler Murray won the starting job. And, you think about it for more than a few seconds, and it's probably no surprise that Carson Wentz is beating him out for the number 2 job. But what do you do? I mean, like, fantasy-wise, I don't think this matters all that much, but like in Dynasty, are we still holding on to J.J. McCarthy? Because this is starting to feel like a Trey Lance sort of Zach Wilson sort of situation.
I mean, I'm at the point now I wouldn't be shocked to see J.J. McCarthy traded. It kind of seems like
they're paying him a lot of money because he's got that like early, like top 10 draft pick. Like he is on the books for a lot of money right now. I'm sure they would love to offload that if they could.
Yeah, and I'll definitely say that I was listening to a Vikings podcast probably about 2.5 weeks ago or so, and they basically nailed this. And they said that it was Kyler Murray's going to win this job probably sooner rather than later, and it wouldn't be surprising at all for Carson Wentz to be the number 2 quarterback and leaving J.J. McCarthy as the inactive emergency quarterback on game day, essentially, because, I mean, Wentz has looked pretty good in moments as well. So, yeah, I think it's and there definitely seems to be something here between Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy, just not on the same page, coaching quarterback there. And yeah, like I said, I think McCarthy, Trey Lance, good comparison potentially there of how long is J.J. McCarthy going to be a Minnesota Viking at some point.
And then Carson Wentz, it's worth noting that when he started last year, Justin Jefferson was pacing for over 1,400 yards in those games with Carson Wentz. So Carson Wentz might not be the most exciting player at this point in his career, but he can absolutely support an elite wide receiver 1.
bullpen quarterback, Dave. He
Yes,
goes in
sir.
the Joe Flacco, the Jameis Winston. He
Uh-huh.
should be roaming and ready to plug in for any team that needs to have a starting quarterback in any week.
The New England Patriots, Travion Henderson, needs the game to slow down to force a true timeshare with Ramondre Stevenson in the Patriots' backfield. We got some reports about him missing his rushing lanes, missing his blocking assignments. I know, Jeff, the size, or not even the size, but the speed is off the charts. We love some of the efficiency from his rookie season, but I know you have been there for a while. I finally made the move today and put Ramondre Stevenson ahead of Travion Henderson in my rankings.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you just got to call a spade a spade. This coaching staff loves Ramondre Stevenson. They're really frustrated about what they're getting from Travion Henderson, and it makes starts to make little sense. You see multiple round of separation between these two backs and ADP, and yeah, I definitely have Stevenson above Travion Henderson in my rankings.
Next up, the New Orleans Saints. Jordan Tyson suffered a right hamstring injury that's going to cause him to miss the start of the season. They're saying that he's going to be out probably 2 months, which means that we're probably looking at an October return. Jeff, we have seen a lot of very, very talented players miss training camp, miss the start of the season, and just struggle to get out the gate as a rookie. I mean, I drafted Jordan Tyson today because he fell to me as the last pick in round 12, but like even that, like you don't feel good clicking that name. We've seen a lot of lost seasons due to injuries. Do you think Tyson is somebody who can find any sort of path this year?
I just had Sigmund Bloom on the Dynasty show with me today, an episode that's going to be coming out this week. And Sig made a great point of you rarely hear the rookie success story of an injury in training camp, set him aside but you awfully a lot hear the disappointment story of an injury in training camp and missing the early portion of the season. I mean, at some level, you're hoping for fantasy playoffs basically with Jordan Tyson, with him getting back in and acclimated. And you're also, the other part of it is you're hoping that Devon Vele and that Juwan Johnson don't lock in and establish themselves, leaving the team willing to really treat this as a redshirt year on Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, so having a standout camp before this too, just a brutal, brutal blow for people who drafted him. Like, you might have taken him third or fourth overall in your dynasty rookie draft. He was going around 5 and 6 in best ball drafts and redraft leagues. So, brutal blow for the Saints and for fantasy managers who made that investment, but hoping for a quick, speedy, and successful recovery there. New York Giants. Let's talk about Najee Harris. I'm pivoting on the fly. We just got that news in a little bit ago. Najee Harris signs as the RB3. We imagine Tyrone Tracy still getting first team reps. Cam Scadaboo coming back from the injury. What do you make of this backfield, Jeff? Because I think this is pretty impactful, but Twitter really disagreed with me for saying that Najee Harris matters whatsoever.
I mean, you've got a third-year running back that his strength is supposed to be the passing game. He's an inherited player by a different coaching staff, and he whiffs and gets your franchise quarterback laid out in a practice game. And you immediately go out and sign Najee Harris, who your offensive coordinator, your run game coordinator, whatever Greg Roman is, coached last year. And yeah, to say that Najee Harris is signing into a situation where he's not going to play. Najee Harris is probably not signing into a situation where he's not going to play. Two, if there's no level of trust on Tyrone Tracy picking up pass blocking assignments, and you don't really want Cam Scadabo burning himself out picking up pass blocking assignments, I mean, there's definitely a chance that Najee Harris, I think Najee Harris is going to be the running back 2 in this team, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrone Tracy is no longer a New York Giant by the time we get to the regular season. Either Tracy or Devin Singletary is going to be gone.
Yeah. And I was going to say Devin Singletary. I think they move on from Singletary, but I also think that this Najee Harris signing is kind of an insurance for Cam Scadaboo, who just runs with reckless abandon, and like it's almost like a matter of when, not if, he gets injured. So I wonder if this is just kind of insurance there, but this is one that I think dilutes the entire backfield here, where Cam Scadaboo and Tyrone Tracy seemed pretty clear cut what their roles would going to be. Now, 2's a company, 3's a crowd. I get a little bit concerned about Najee Harris being in the mix. But let's talk about the New York Jets. Breece Hall's heavy first team usage in the preseason opener offered hope for a true bell cow role in 2026, but Braylon Allen looked explosive in his return from a knee injury. No note on Isaiah Davis, but he's a guy that the team just consistently kind of raves about here. But I mean, we've got the injury with Breece Hall right now. Sounds like it's pretty minor, that he should be out for a week, maybe 2, but he'll be ready to go for the start of the season. He's a veteran. He knows this offensive line. Any concerns that Breece Hall isn't going to be a workhorse this year, Jeff?
No, I'm not particularly concerned that he wouldn't be a workhorse. They paid him to that level, and I think that he probably wanted that role as part of that contract, and I think that
Hmm.
they're going to involve there. I did catch this game and seeing Braylon Allen roll into their end zone, and just kind of like one of those things like that's going to play like that works. Like
That's a
Braylon Allen, you see
big
that,
man.
yeah, yeah, that can work on an NFL field. But yeah, absolutely, I think Brees Hall is. I think he's been a good value throughout the offseason. And yeah, as long as there's no lingering effects, absolutely could have a good season here.
Yeah, Braylon Allen, might not be a household name, but this guy came into the NFL draft like a few weeks after his 20th birthday and was already built like a 30-year-old Derrick Henry. I mean, this dude just has like muscles on top of his muscles and now is healthy and young coming into the season. So again, we're talking about these late round picks that you're targeting in best ball. Braylon Allen is a very fun late round pick. Philadelphia Eagles, Saquon Barkley routinely broke off chunk plays this week, exploding to the boundary and through the second level in this new scheme. Jeff, please, please, please tell me that we're getting Saquon Barkley back after last year's massive disappointment.
I mean, I've been saying it for a little while. You asked me about a month ago, what are we supposed to be doing at the 112? And I was like, well, why aren't we just drafting the dude that had 2,000 yards 2 years ago? But yeah, I think I mean, there have been enough words, enough ink spilled about Kevin Petulu's scheme at this point. But I
Right.
always still continually just go back to the Falcons recognizing that they were running wide receivers into the lanes that Bijan Robinson was supposed to be running into. And then as soon as they stopped doing that, all of a sudden the guy, Bijan Robinson, can't break big runs, but just rips them left and right last year once they made that epiphany. And I do think it had a lot more to do with scheme on Saquon Barkley's disappointing year last year. Maybe run down a little bit from that Super Bowl year, but a lot of scheme.
Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Caleb Johnson is in a position where he may not make the final roster. So silly, silly me, Jeff. A couple of months ago, I was saying like, "Hey, Caleb Johnson, a really cheap dynasty buy. Maybe a new coaching staff will see something that no." Caleb Johnson struggling mightily even with a new coaching staff. I don't know what to say about this. I feel bad for anybody who spent a top 5 dynasty rookie pick on Caleb Johnson last offseason.
To be fair, it was weird when he was like his ADP didn't move after he fell like well into the third round and showed that other backs definitely should have been valued there. I mean, just the explosive. I don't know. I don't know if it's a mental thing because he did have that play against Seattle that maybe that
Yeah.
rookie year would have gone a different direction. If that maybe I would sure hope that like that just didn't wreck him to the point where he just lost his career off of that. But yeah, it's disappointing. It's frustrating. It's it is what it is. But at the same time, it is a stark reminder on how many of these rookies, as we go through rookie draft season, all that we think are going to be league winners, league breakers, and how often like half of them can't even play immediately.
And I want to say, like, you and I both had a hard fade against Caleb Johnson. I don't know if we had a bigger stance, a contrarian stance in last year's rookie draft. That being said, like, I always want to root for a young player to
Yeah,
turn it around. So hopefully,
absolutely.
if he does get released, he can find another opportunity because the athleticism is there. And I think that given another opportunity, maybe something better could happen. So hoping for all the best for Caleb Johnson if he does end up getting released by the Steelers. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers here. The 49ers look to have hit on the 33rd overall draft pick, Dejon Stribling, whose preseason debut against the Titans was highlighted by smoothness, speed, and physicality. Jeff, this is another one. We talked about Jonathan Brooks. We talked about David Montgomery. We talked about DJ Moore. Like, all of our favorite targets are now just getting steamed up to the point that, like, we almost can't touch them in drafts anymore. And I'm seeing Dejon Stribling regularly going in round 7, round 8. Like, I still want to mix some in because I do see, like, I don't think it's crazy to say that the upside here is being a top 12, top 15 wide receiver in this offense. But at the same time, it feels like we've extracted a lot of the upside out of his profile with his new cost.
I've spent the last couple of years telling you, Dave, don't force diversification. Diversification will find you as you're building a portfolio. And this is an example of you get in early, and I got that 20% John Stribling sitting there, and that number keeps ticking down just a little bit every single day, it seems to be. But yeah, it is. You love to see it, and this is again, it's we do tend to cheer for the underdog between the two of us and the guys that kind of I've started calling them meme wide receivers to to some extent. Quentin Johnston's a meme wide receiver, and the
Yep.
jokes get locked in. And Devon Bailey's a meme wide receiver because of the age that you can just get great value off of that. And there was so much that came out around Stribling, and it's great to see. I mean, everything has been. I mean, this is I hesitate to say it, but like trending towards like Puka Nakua type steam coming
Yeah.
off of this move here. And Kyle Shanahan's the type of coach that probably has a vision on Stribling when he saw him.
I'm starting to workshop a take, Jeff, that like fade the players Twitter likes and draft the players Twitter doesn't like. I think if you just kind of stick to that process alone, you can probably find success
Well,
in fantasy football.
watch the guys and read the Football Guys rookie guide, because we watch the guys. And I mean, Caleb Douglas, John Stribling, like these are guys that I loved in the rookie guide. And you put your eyes on the players, you can start to see the players that stand out.
Seattle Seahawks, Jadarian Price missed most of this week, but his spot as the lead back is not in question. He got some preferential treatment in this preseason game. Meanwhile, they ran the wheels off George Holani in that same exact game. So there's been a lot of talk about what this split is going to look like, how it is going to shift throughout the season. But Jadarian Price, this might just be as simple as they need a running back, and they drafted one in round 1, and he could end up getting a lot more work than people want. This is a guy that, like, I don't even like the talent that much. Like, I think there are major question marks there. I thought he was a reach in the draft. But if you're telling me I can get a round 1 rookie on a good offense in round 6 of fantasy drafts, like, I have been drafting the heck out of Jadarian Price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one, again, something we've been talking about, where they can say they've got all the intention in the world of being a 50-50 split or involving George Holani, but then when the lights come on and you realize one guy is way better than the other guy, tends to force in that direction. And I do think that, I don't know, I mean, I know you're doing the show with Coach Speak, Greg Branos, coming up here, but I don't know if it's quite Coach Speak or if it's motivation on young players, but I do feel like we tend to see on some of these young backs of either a conservative approach for everybody outside of Jeremiah Love, or kind of like building, like basically telling the rookie running back, you work on these things, like keep working on it. Like, we want you to show up working hard every single day. And, oh, by the way, yeah, you're clearly the dude, and we're going to give you the ball.
Right. And I think Mike McDonald, like, is more of that old school coach where he's going to say this is what he needs to work on, and he's got to earn his role. And we're hearing the same thing. Like, DeJon Stribling, who just had an amazing preseason game, Kyle Shanahan immediately talked about what he needed to improve and the things that he did wrong. So just different types of coaches. Like, you've got some player coaches, and then you've got some that are just going to demand excellence and try to squeeze every bit of value and upside they can out of a player.
I think Amarian Hampton is another one of those examples, and everybody's running with that quote from Mike McDaniel. And I actually got a chance to go through the whole press conference. And right before McDaniel had that quote everybody ran with, he said, there's going to be a ton of work for Amarian Hampton in this offense.
Right. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Emeka Egbuka suffered a toe sprain, but all signs point to him being fully healthy for week 1. Now, we're hearing toe sprain, but we also have a lot of injury analysts, our Adam Hutchison, and I've seen Jeff Mueller and some others speculating that this could actually be turf toe, that the two injuries are very similar. Now, I know turf toe is a scary injury, and that scares a lot of people away. We see these toe injuries do tend to linger. Is this something that you're shifting your rankings at all, Jeff? Like, have you bumped Emeka Egbuka down? Are you passing on him in drafts? Or is this kind of a non-story for you?
I mean, I hadn't been taking him just because I like
Same.
I like Garrett Wilson, like, in the similar range, or like I like some
Chris
other guys in the
Olave, Zay
similar range.
Flowers.
Yeah. And so I like other guys in a similar range there. So I did slightly bump down, but I think more like holistically, you look at it, like Jalen McMillan had the thing pop up, and Emeka Egbuka. There was the Bucky Irving thing coming in. At some level, it feels like there's like snake bit or something going on kind of with this Tampa Bay team this year.
Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans. Tajay Spears continues to flash explosive ability both in practice and in the preseason opener, strengthening his case for a prominent role in the backfield. This is another one of those, Jeff, where there is just like a 10-round gap between Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. And if we were to just strip ADP today and just draft names alphabetically, and we did 100 drafts, my guess is that these guys would probably settle in to the same round. But for whatever reason, there's just this massive chasm in ADP where Tajay Spears right now is starting to stand out as a fantastic late round value.
I promise, when we get things wrong, we say we got it wrong. And I feel like the last half of this episode especially has turned into, hey, we were right here. We were right here. We're wrong, and we say it. But I mean, I know we did an episode about a month ago or so where we said favorite top buy targets and go out, and I had Tajay Spears is one of my favorite buy targets there, and we're seeing it. And we just talked about Tampa Bay, and why is there so much steam on Kenneth Gainwell and there's none on Tajay Spears when you could really see both of those guys having very similar roles, very similar production, and Spears definitely is a player that we should be hitting. We saw Cam Ward struggle in his first game there. They're going to need an easy button in this offense. I think Tajay Spears could be one of those easy buttons.
Well, let's close on a note where maybe we didn't have the best read. Earlier in the offseason, we were aggressively saying to draft Terry McLaurin, and today's note on the Washington Commanders is that Stephon Diggs has assimilated immediately as a high-end number 2 target opposite Terry McLaurin, intensifying competition for depth roles at the position. So this is one, I don't know if we can say we were right or wrong, but I have definitely bumped Terry McLaurin down in my rankings after seeing how good Stephon Diggs looks in all these clips coming out. We've heard nothing but positivity about the shape that he's in and how quickly he's acclimating in this offense. So, Terry McLaurin, not a player that I'm saying like do not draft or anything like that, but where I had him comfortably ahead of a lot of the other guys in that range. I was taking him ahead of Devontae Adams, ahead of Mike Evans, and ahead of I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that were going there, ahead of Burden, ahead of Ibuka. Now I'm wondering if maybe we move him behind those guys. So I'm starting to have some second thoughts on my Terry McLaurin love.
Where do you've got the two of these players ranked, Dave?
I have Terry McLaurin at wide receiver 24, and I have Stephon Diggs at wide receiver 39. So okay. I still prefer McLaurin, but I had McLaurin before. I had him inside my top 20, and now I've bumped him down to 24.
I have McLaurin at 20 and Diggs at 36. And so those are my projections working on there. And I think
they're almost identical. We haven't even talked about this, but how often does this happen, Jeff, where like a new story happens, you and I both react to it independently and then realize that we're pretty much in the same spot?
Yeah, and I think my biggest reaction on this is if Jaden Daniels is good, if Jaden Daniels is as good as we thought he was 1 year ago, then absolutely both of these players can be fantasy wide receivers to wide receiver pushing to one of them pushing to wide receiver 1. We see it on multiple offenses throughout the NFL.
Well, Jeff, we did it. We did about 2 hours for the week 1 show. We dragged it out to 3 hours for the week 2 show. And we said, let's try to hit a rapid fire episode in under an hour. And I think we were probably talking at about 1.2x our normal speed, but we did it. We covered 32 teams, 32 storylines in under an hour. Take a deep breath, pat yourself on the back. Anything else that you'd like as far as just overall takeaways, on this week of training camp, or what you're looking forward to as we head into the next week of preseason games?
I just want guys to be healthy, man. I just like don't get hurt. And I was talking to you offline a little bit about like micro analysis on usage in the preseason, all these things. And I'm just sitting here thinking, please don't get hurt. Please just be healthy going into the year. And it does feel like Chris Olave just popped up with something today, like shortly before we recorded. And it does feel like it's a very physical game. And a good point that Drake London made was he was talking about that the first opening of training camp of just building calluses and how an offensive lineman could step on your foot on the second day of camp and you're like, oh my God, this is the most painful thing ever in the world. And then if that happens during week 3, you're like, oh, the next play, let's get back to the huddle and go. To some level of these injuries, I think are callousing guys up a little bit, but and we're also seeing extra caution with maintenance on teams. Guy goes down, they're going to cart him off. They're not going to mess around there. And guys are probably told that you go down even a little bit, we'll just get the cart and go with it. And we do tend to, the Zay Flowers thing, where Zay Flowers, a full-blown panic. Zay Flowers is down, and then he misses one day, and it's like he's back here. And these are football players to some level, too.
Did you see the J.K. Dobbins thing from a couple of weeks ago where he goes down? Yeah. And, of course, it's J.K. Dobbins, so everybody completely overreacts. I happened some best ball drafts that day, and I see Jonah Coleman going 6 rounds ahead of ADP. And then J.K. Dobbins was back at practice the next day, and he was kind of, like, jeering the media. Like, there was, like, a little scrum of media people, and he's like, why are you guys acting surprised that I'm back here? Like, you guys are the ones that made up the rumors. I'm fine. And, we do see a lot of injury overreaction. So until you get a timeline, just kind of assume the best this time of year, because a lot of these injuries do just end up being 1 day, 2 day things, and then they're quickly back. Teams are always going to err on the side of caution, especially with their superstar players. But Jeff, that'll do it today. We will be back next week. We've got 2 more weeks of training camp reports that we're going to be doing here. Very fun time of year, ever-changing ADP, ever-changing player takes, injuries to react to, news to react to, hype that is real, hype that is fake, so much to talk about. So please hang out with us between now and week 1 as we continue bringing you daily content right here on the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we will see you soon.